I came back from leave on a Monday morning that smelled like burnt coffee and cheap air freshener. 2 weeks away. That's all I took. 2 weeks to clear my head, to remember what silence sounded like. I didn't know those 14 days would be enough for the world I'd built to quietly decide it no longer needed me. When I walked into the office, something felt off. You know that weird shift in energy when people pretend everything's fine, but it isn't? That's what it was. A few nods, a few forced smiles. My name wasn't on the board where it usually was. My desk had been moved, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. My mug was gone too. The one that said Captain of Calm, which my team gave me after we landed the Johnson project last year. I laughed it off at first. Maybe the cleaning crew moved things. Maybe someone borrowed the mug. Then I saw him. Ryan, the intern I'd mentored just months ago, sitting at my workstation, typing with the kind of confidence you only have when someone powerful tells you it's okay to take up space. I froze. My first instinct was to ask what the hell he was doing there. But something in me said, wait. He looked up, nervous, smiled. Hey, Mr. Murphy, welcome back. I think Marcus wanted to talk to you first thing. Marcus, my boss, my mentor, my friend. So I went. I knocked on his half-open door. No answer. I heard voices inside, so I hesitated. And then I heard my name. He's useless now. It was Marcus's voice. Calm, deliberate. There was a short laugh, one I recognized as Ryan's. Yeah, Ryan said. He's good, but slower. Old school, you know? My chest tightened. Marcus sighed. Exactly. He's been dependable, but the company's changing. I can't have someone who still believes loyalty matters more than adaptability. He's stuck in the past. I stood there, hand still on the doorknob, listening to two people I'd helped, one I'd trained, talk about me like a piece of outdated equipment. And the worst part? They were right about one thing. I was loyal. For 7 years I'd lived and breathed this place, pulled all-nighters, covered for people, took hits for decisions that weren't mine. I'd believed that if you gave everything, they'd remember. But the truth is, people remember you only as long as you're useful to them. I stepped back, quietly. My pulse thudded in my ears. The hallway lights flickered above me, and for a second I saw my reflection in the glass wall opposite Marcus's office. Pale, expressionless, ordinary. A man who'd just realized he'd been replaced. I walked to the break room, filled a cup with stale coffee, and stared out the window overlooking the parking lot. My hands were steady, too steady, the kind of calm that comes right before something breaks. I thought about the nights I'd stayed till 2 a.m., finishing reports Marcus couldn't be bothered to check, the clients I'd kept from leaving, the promises I'd believed, and then I thought about the way he'd said it. He's useless now. Like a machine, not a person. I could have walked in, confronted him, demanded answers, but I didn't. I took a sip of the bitter coffee and decided to do something worse. I pretended I hadn't heard a thing. The next few hours passed like I was underwater. People spoke to me, smiled, asked how my vacation was. I answered automatically. I saw Marcus later that afternoon. He gave me that managerial grin, the one that stretches but never reaches the eyes. Ethan, good to have you back, man. Let's catch up later this week, okay? Sure, I said. My voice sounded normal, even to me. But something inside had shifted. That night when I got home, I couldn't shake the echo of his voice. I sat on the couch with my laptop open and stared at the company's internal system, the one I'd helped build, maintain, and secure. I realized something. If I was truly useless to them now, then I finally had nothing left to lose. My phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. Hey man, hope you don't mind. Marcus asked me to lead tomorrow's meeting while you settle back in. Settle back in. That was their way of saying, step aside quietly. I typed out a reply, deleted it, typed again. Then I just turned off the phone. I don't know if you've ever had that moment. When betrayal doesn't even hurt anymore, it just clarifies everything. It's like fog lifting. And for the first time, you see exactly how naive you've been. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat there thinking about the years I'd traded for the illusion of security. And by morning, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. They thought they'd made me invisible. Good. It's easier to move in silence when no one's looking at you. But that was just the beginning. The next morning, the office felt smaller. Not physically, but like the walls were leaning in, whispering things I wasn't supposed to hear. Ryan sat in what used to be my seat again. He'd even brought his own coffee mug. One of those novelty ones that said, "Rise and grind." It made me laugh, quietly. The kind of laugh that hurts your ribs because it's trying not to turn into something darker. He looked up when I walked past. "Morning, Mr. Murphy," he said with that practiced mix of respect and pity. I nodded. "Morning." I could have told him to move. Could have told him that chair was mine. But I didn't. I just walked to the far corner, to one of the hot desks no one liked because it was near the printer that sounded like a dying cat. It was perfect, out of the way, invisible. By 9 p.m., everyone gathered in the conference room. The Monday meeting. I stood near the door, waiting to follow them in, until Marcus stepped out of his office, spotted me, and said, "Oh, Ethan, don't worry about this one. It's more of a strategy sync for the new pipeline." The new pipeline, that was my project. "Sure," I said. He smiled. "Appreciate it. We'll loop you in later." They didn't. From my corner, I watched through the glass wall as Ryan stood at the whiteboard, drawing lines and arrows like he'd been doing it for years. People nodded, took notes, asked questions. And Marcus. He just stood there, arms crossed, letting the kid talk. It's strange how humiliation doesn't come as one big wave. It comes in drops. Little moments. A missing email. A meeting you're not invited to. A file you can't access anymore because permissions were updated. Each drop seems small, but together they drown you. By Wednesday, my access to the budget folder was gone. By Friday, my name wasn't listed under any active projects. And still, no one said a word. I kept showing up on time, like a ghost punching a clock. I answered emails, smiled when spoken to, even laughed at jokes I didn't hear. Because here's the thing. When people decide you're irrelevant, they stop looking at you. You become background noise, and background noise can hear everything. That's when I started paying attention. Marcus's door was always closed now. He'd step out only for phone calls or when Ryan was presenting something. But what really caught my eye was the way they handled clients. Invoices delayed, reports doctored, a few performance bonuses that didn't add up. I wasn't supposed to see any of it, but years of building the system meant I knew where every file, every approval trail, every signature lived. At first, I just watched. But curiosity is a dangerous thing when you've been wronged. I started copying data to a secure drive. Slowly, carefully, emails, spreadsheets, time logs, all of it. I wasn't even sure why I was doing it. Maybe it was self-defense. Maybe it was instinct. On Thursday afternoon, Marcus stopped by my desk. "Ethan," he said with that fake concerned tone, "how are you holding up? Settling back in okay?" I looked up from my screen. "Yeah, just catching up on some of the internal updates." "Good, good." He glanced at my monitor, where a spreadsheet of archived reports was open. "Try not to get too lost in the old stuff. We're streamlining things now." "Sure," I said. He smiled. The same smile people give when they've already written your eulogy. That night I stayed late. Everyone else had gone home. The hum of the printer and the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights were the only sounds left. I opened a shared folder marked Temp 2023. Inside were dozens of documents labeled with initials and codes. When I decrypted one of them, old habit, I saw what I wasn't supposed to. False invoices tied to a consulting firm that didn't exist. The signature at the bottom was Marcus's. The approval timestamp, Ryan's. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't spike. I just smiled. They hadn't replaced me because I was useless. They replaced me because I was honest, because I was the only one who knew how things actually worked here. It all made sense now. The sudden distance, the soft words, the meetings without me. They weren't promoting Ryan for his skills. They were protecting him, protecting both of them. I copied the folder onto my external drive and tucked it into my backpack. Walking out of the building, the night air felt heavy, like the city itself was holding its breath. Halfway to the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "You've been a real asset, Ethan. We're restructuring next quarter, and I'd like to discuss your next steps soon. Let's grab lunch next week." I stared at the screen, almost laughing. Next steps. I knew what that meant. They were planning to cut me loose, gently, politely, like you'd release an old dog that can't keep up anymore. But this old dog had teeth. I deleted the message, slipped the phone in my pocket. The city lights reflected in the glass doors behind me, and for a second I caught my own reflection again. Not the quiet, loyal man from before. Someone colder, clearer. I'd heard enough, and I finally understood that being silent didn't mean being powerless. It meant being patient. I didn't know it yet, but that decision would cost them everything. By the following week, I'd mastered the art of being invisible. Not the kind where you hide, the kind where people stop noticing you because they believe they already understand your story. He's quiet now, probably tired, probably waiting to be laid off. Good. Let them think that. It gave me freedom. Freedom to walk unnoticed through the cracks I used to protect. Freedom to watch the same men who had called me useless bury themselves under their own arrogance. Every morning I arrived before everyone else. I'd sit at my old desk, or what used to be mine, and log into the system long before Marcus's keycard pinged at the front door. I had 30 minutes every day, 30 minutes of silence before the building came alive. That's all I needed. I built a duplicate of the company's internal network, quietly, in the background. Every invoice, every altered report, every falsified bonus, copied to an external cloud. Marcus and Ryan had no idea the house of cards they'd built was already on fire. At lunch, I'd join them sometimes. Ryan would joke. Marcus would smile politely. They thought I was broken. Humbled. They couldn't tell that the man sitting across from them, nodding at their stories, was building their obituary line by line. It wasn't revenge I wanted, not at first. It was clarity, justice maybe, to remind them what happens when you confuse kindness for weakness. One evening, long after everyone had left, I went through the final layer, Marcus's private folder. Encrypted, of course. It took me 2 hours to break through. Inside were PDF contracts showing side deals with suppliers, personal kickbacks funneled through fake companies, including one under Ryan's name. That was when I felt it. Not anger, not triumph. Something sharper, like a quiet certainty. They'd used me as cover for years. My spotless record, my trustworthiness, my name on official reports, all of it had been part of the shield that kept them safe. And now, that shield was about to turn into a blade. I uploaded everything to a secure email draft, unsent, waiting, addressed to the company's board, the finance department, and the press. No message, no threats, just facts. Truth doesn't need commentary. That night, I stopped being the hero. The next day, Marcus called me into his office. He was smiling, but his eyes were tight. "Ethan, you've been quiet lately. Everything okay?" "Fine," I said. Good, good. He leaned back. "Listen, about next quarter. We're restructuring. Ryan will be taking on more leadership responsibilities and, well, you've done great work, but I think it might be time to explore new opportunities. With a solid recommendation from me, of course." He said it like he was doing me a favor, like he was handing me a gift instead of a knife. I nodded slowly. "That's generous of you." He smiled. "I knew you'd understand. You've always been a team player." I walked out without saying another word. My heart wasn't racing. I wasn't even angry. I just felt done. Completely, beautifully done. That afternoon, I went back to my desk and finished my final act. I didn't send the email yet. Not yet. Timing mattered. Marcus had a board presentation coming up Friday, a quarterly showcase with investors, partners, and press. The perfect stage. Thursday night, I stayed late again. The office was dark except for the glow of my monitor. I opened the file folder one last time, scrolled through every image, every signature, every transfer. It was all there. Years of deceit, millions hidden, and at the bottom of it all, my name. Used as a reference, a stamp of legitimacy, a silent witness to their lies. I stared at that signature for a long time. Then I took a photo of it, not for proof, but as a reminder of who I used to be and who I'd become. I left the building close to midnight. The city was half asleep, the streets damp from a light drizzle. I walked slowly, no rush, no guilt, just calm. At 8 a.m. Friday, I came in early again. People were setting up the conference room for the presentation. Ryan was rehearsing slides. Marcus was pacing, pretending to be calm. I sat quietly at my desk, drinking bad coffee, waiting for my moment. At 8:30, I hit send. The email left my outbox and split into a dozen destinations. Within minutes, the company network stuttered. Notifications began to pop up across screens. The first one appeared on Ryan's laptop mid-presentation. Then Marcus's phone buzzed. Then silence. That kind of silence that means something's gone wrong. Marcus's face turned pale. Ryan stopped talking. Whispers spread across the room. I sat there, calm, sipping coffee as chaos bloomed around me. The IT director rushed in, phone pressed to his ear. "We've got a situation," he muttered. "There's something going around. Files, emails, everything's out." Marcus looked toward me through the glass wall. Our eyes met for the briefest second. He knew. Of course he did. I stood up, slipped my jacket on, and walked out. No words, no goodbyes. I didn't need to see it. I could already picture it. The panic, the calls, the collapse. In the elevator, as the doors closed, I felt that strange mix of peace and adrenaline that only comes when you finally stop fighting and let the truth do the work for you. I'd spent years believing loyalty was strength, that silence was dignity. But sometimes silence is just strategy. And that day, strategy became justice. 3 days later, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating nonstop. I didn't need to look to know what it was about. When you set fire to something that big, you can smell the smoke before you see the flames. The first message was from an old coworker. "They're done, Ethan." Marcus was escorted out. Ryan, too. Whole board's in chaos. The second was from HR. "We'd like to schedule an exit interview regarding your recent resignation." Resignation. I hadn't even submitted one, but they needed it to look clean. Easier to erase me that way. Fine by me. I was already gone. I got up, brewed coffee, opened the blinds. The city outside looked the same, indifferent, buzzing, alive. It's funny how the world never pauses for your revenge. You expect thunder, but the sun still rises like nothing happened. I turned on the TV, muted the sound, and watched the morning news. A familiar logo flashed across the screen. Tech firm under investigation for fraud. They didn't say my name. They wouldn't. But I could see Marcus's photo, Ryan's LinkedIn headshot, and the headlines scrolling underneath. CFO and senior manager accused of financial misconduct. Whistleblower remains unidentified. Unidentified. Perfect. I poured my coffee and sat on the balcony. The air was cool, clean, the kind that feels earned. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about deadlines or reports. I wasn't thinking about loyalty or trust. I was thinking about freedom. When you dedicate your life to something, you start believing it defines you, that losing it means losing yourself. But it doesn't. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to see who you really are. I spent the next week in quiet, deleted my work email, deactivated LinkedIn, turned off notifications. At night, I'd walk past the office building on my way home from the bar down the street. The lights used to burn till midnight. Now the whole floor was dark. I wondered if Marcus was watching too, somewhere, replaying everything in his head. A month later, I got an email from a journalist. She said she'd pieced together most of the story from an anonymous source. She wanted to know if I was willing to go on record. I didn't reply. I didn't need a headline. I'd already had my ending. One afternoon, I stopped by a small cafe near the harbor, one I used to go to before everything turned into meetings and fake smiles. The barista still remembered my name. "Been a while, Ethan," she said, handing me my cup. "Yeah," I smiled. "I guess it has." I sat by the window watching the rain tap softly against the glass. A couple nearby was arguing in low voices. A child laughed at pigeons outside. Normal life. Messy, honest, real. I took a sip and thought about the last few months. The betrayal. The silence. The unraveling. For years I thought my worth came from being needed. From being the one who fixed everything. Who stayed late. Who never said no. But now I understood something simple. They didn't break me. They freed me. Across the street, a moving truck was parked outside the company's old office. Two men were loading boxes labeled records. I smiled, not with spite, not with satisfaction, just with peace. People think revenge is fire, loud, violent, dramatic. But the best revenge? It's quiet. It's calm. It's living better than the people who tried to bury you. I finished my coffee, left a tip on the counter, and stepped out into the drizzle. The world smelled like wet asphalt and something new. As I walked down the street, I pulled my hood up and slipped my hands into my pockets. The phone buzzed once more. A text from an unknown number. "You did this, didn't you?" No name, no context, just those words. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back. "You did this to yourselves?" And then silence. The good kind. The kind that doesn't ache anymore. I kept walking. Past the crowds, past the noise, past the ghost of the man who once thought loyalty was enough. The city stretched ahead. Endless, unjudging, waiting. They thought I was gone. I wasn't.